Hey there, welcome to this week's episode of Bloomerang TV. Thanks for tuning in. It's June. It's my favorite month of the year. It's my birthday month, but also there's two really cool things happening in June. One, an awesome event, MCON, which everyone should go to. And two, an awesome report is coming out that has been out the last maybe 4 or 5 years, I think. The Millennial Impact Report comes out this month. And I've got Derrick Feldman. He's the president of Achieve here, and he's responsible for both those awesome things. So, hey, Derrick, how's it going?
Hey, good to be here.
So before you go into those things, I want you to talk all about it. Just in case people don't know who you are, which I think maybe one person out of everyone who watches this won't know, Derrick. But just in case, can you talk about Achieve and what you guys are up to these days?
Sure. So Achieve is a research and campaigns agency. Our primary piece that we do is research to understand why donors behave the way they do, and more on the practitioner market research angle. And then we inform organizations on how to improve everything from messaging, solicitations, all that stuff. We're most notably, I guess, in the field as the producers and researchers for the Millennial Impact Project, which is supported by the Case Foundation, Steve and Jean Case, founders of AOL. And that project has started in 2010. And it actually started in 2009, but you don't really produce the first reports till 2010. So
right.
Technically 2009. But since then, we've had about 6 or 7 different reports to try and understand why and how this generation of 20 to 30-year-olds is doing what they're doing with causes. And it's interesting because at the time in 2009, the concept or even the name millennial was hardly even referenced. And
right.
Today, I don't think you can go out with anything without hearing that.
It's because of you.
I don't know about that.
No, but a lot of people are kind of paying it lip service, but you guys are, I mean, these reports are chock full of awesome information, like meaningful information. And one thing I like about them is you kind of take a different angle each year of what you actually look like. What are you going to look at in the upcoming report for 2015?
Yes. So the first 4 years was primarily focused on how millennials are engaging directly with causes. So this is from the fundraising, solicitation, marketing, communications, digital side. And then last year and this year, our focus is at the workplace, because that's the most influential place where we spend about 47 hours a week there,
right.
Overall, more than sometimes in our personal time. So last year was just to get a sense of what's activities occurring. This year, we took a different angle, and this is really, really important for nonprofit causes that are part of yours and others, is that we looked at influence. What is the influence in the workplace that makes the millennial do what they do with causes? And I'll tell you what, there is one person that you really need on board, and their title is not CEO, its title is manager. In this year's report, we'll talk about how managers either influence or, quite honestly, dissuaded participation with causes because of their own personal experience, because of what they are told to do, or something that maybe they even made up at times as well. What's also cool about this year's report that we looked at companies of all sizes and a national sample. So what that means is that we have this really huge company, technology company, that's got about 75,000 workers, employees, all the way down to we have a small business. And we compared what participation is from millennials in each one of those different size companies, from a large cap to a mid cap to a small business, and just a regular sample of people who just go to work. So we'll be able to tell you here in June 24th and 25th how life is a little bit different at different size companies and where that influence is really coming from.
So I don't want you to give too much away because I want people to download and read the report, but were you satisfied? Are you worried about some of the things you discovered in terms of employee engagement and what those managers actually are doing in terms of, encouraging volunteerism and giving? What's your sense of where we actually stand on employee engagement?
I now more than ever, we've got a group of people, this generation, that wants to do good, right? So I call them there's these big cause enthusiasts, and it's the job of any nonprofit marketer or fundraiser to try and activate them. I mean, this generation has had things like service in schools and learning and giving programs, dance marathon, all these types of things that are out there to try and influence philanthropic behavior. And what we've discovered, though, is that can be really sort of shattered when they get into certain scenarios, right? So it's even shattered, too, when their own peers say to them, don't do this or don't get involved, right? So they influence them negatively. what was really exciting to see is that the managers who believed strongly or had their own great personal experiences with causes, being on boards, volunteering, giving themselves, participating in giving days, all those different types of things, we saw them really take that benefit in the company and exploit it for their team, which was great. I think what was challenging, though, is that there were some managers who historically were not as active or as involved or didn't look at cause as a benefit to the culture overall. And unfortunately, the Millennial wasn't active with them. And what's also really interesting about this, and this is what we tried to look at across the years, is that because a Millennial doesn't act, doesn't mean that they're not interested in engagement, right? Our first thing is, well, we sent this solicitation out, we sent this marketing message out, and they just weren't interested. There are factors that happen that make somebody do or get or participate. It could have been the message was wrong. Could have been that really crappy email that they sent. It could have been something else, right? Well, in this case, we're finding that when they're in the 8 to 5, 8 to 6 time frame during the day, and they're looking to their manager for advice, counsel, support, both in personal and professional at times, they're the ones that are really crafting that participation. So I encourage that causes today look at the workplace and say, we want buy-in at the top, but we're going to work incredibly hard to get the managers and all the different teams and companies to talk about our cause, to get them involved in giving aspects, to get them doing things with us. And it's because primarily, and this is what you have seen too with Bloomerang, you create tools now that allows any individual to raise support, to go out, get involved with the cause, because we have made the action of getting involved with causes really democratized, right? It's all the way down to the individual level. And in companies, it's happening, that culture is there too, where the power now is even at the more localized team-based level than it ever has been before. And so creating tools for that, creating ways in which that manager can be successful with a team is so imperative.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think most nonprofits don't even think to target that managerial level in terms of reaching out to donors. They just try to get them directly. So that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and it was interesting because we follow millennials as they're in the workplace, right? So not only we'll report, and then we'll keep on reporting throughout some panel behavior that we've seen. And what's interesting is that as you look at it, we'll even see things that come out from the C-level suite that says, you need to participate in this. Well, I don't know about you, but when my mom said I had to eat broccoli, I really hated it.
Yeah.
So I avoided it at all costs. And it's not that they disrespect, it's just that when you're told in that manner that this is where you need to spend your passion time, your empathy time, the community time for something that you're not passionate about, it's going to be very difficult.
Yep, absolutely. So awesome report coming out. It coincides with MCON, which is such a unique event. There's nothing like it in terms of the caliber and pedigree of the speakers and the different kinds of people you bring together. For-profits can benefit from the information that's shared. Certainly nonprofits can. Can you talk a little bit about who you've got on board for MCON and what people can expect to attend?
Yeah, so MCON, it's crazy to think about it, but it's actually our 5th year of it. It all started in a complete online model, right? We're going to bring all these speakers together and great content and stream it out. So we get about 18 to 20,000 people attending online, which is really interesting because I think we did the model backwards, where most people create a conference now and figure out how to go online. We kind of online and did that, but we don't allow. We call it our viewing audience that's there. And they get really great hands-on participation with our speakers, and so we have a really small audience in person. This year, our focus is on influence. It's kind of goes back to the report too as well. We studied activity, we studied why it happens, but now we also want to get into how can we leverage more, right? How can we influence people to do more things? And so this year we looked at influence through 4 major spaces. So art, media, business, and place. How are artists using their own influence? So we've got like Mark Roberg, who's the frontman for OAR, who all of their new material is all based humanitarian. Also some really interesting things of stories about how they've used art to influence their following to try and act for causes in some way. We'll have the CEO, Gary Nell, from National Geographic. Now, this National Geographic is an older entity. I mean, this is an entity that's gone through changes. They're a very much digital, very multimedia platform. And they have to accommodate all demographics. And they've come up with some very interesting tactics that they've used to try and influence experiential, because it's a huge experiential consumer base that they got, to get them to participate in this concept of conservation and other ways. In addition to that, in media, it's hard to ignore what the media is doing, right? So we've got the founder of Upworthy, who's going to talk about how they started out and what they're using messages and so forth. And then even in the place section, we're looking at how neighborhoods are doing the things that they have. And so we've got some individuals from Detroit who are changing the neighborhood model as well. Carol Coletta with the Knight Foundation and all the things that they've seen around the country. In the art space, we've got Sarah Erst Green, the art assignment, who will be talking about some of the influential things that they're doing in the art area to try and get people to do art anytime and anywhere through these small different types of assignments. We've also got Jonathan Neiman, who is the CEO of Sweetgreen, which is, if you haven't been there, it's more in the Northeast and in Chicago too. Sweetgreen is a very similar concept to Chipotle, more in the salad and environment area. Huge philanthropic piece, young CEO, entrepreneur, and he's got a lot of different types of VC money going out there with a different model than typically. And then even an older type organization that's shifting. Vicky with Opportunity International, she's the CEO, will be talking about how we as a traditional organization is mounting a new movement with other people. So all different types. And I think the one thing that's really good about MCON is if you're a fundraiser, there's stuff for you to learn about how people today take in messages and content and information and act. If you're a marketer, you want to figure out how these people have, Upworthy is the best at some of the content marketing I've ever seen. Medium is out there, we'll have them there. All different types who are doing different platforms. If you're a business, we've got you too. We've got different businesses that will be there talking about what they have. Daniel Lebetsky with Kind Snacks, who's the CEO there and the founder of his new book, Do the Kind Thing. All of these different models that are used there. So everybody can typically end and leave MCON with some good ideas, nonprofit or for-profit, to get going. Yeah, lots of things to learn. And I like that, fundraisers can go and get content that they're not going to get from a typical, nonprofit conference where it's just, CFREs and pundits. And it's all good, but they're going to learn some really cool things that can kind of inform their efforts in maybe a way they didn't think possible. And the live stream is free, right? So you don't even have to buy a ticket. Yeah, this is where we have to thank the Case Foundation, American Express in particular, for allowing anybody in our field, anybody anywhere, to access the content for free online. So tune in June 24th and 25th. We start at, we have a morning show that's sort of our pre-show that begins at 8 a.m. Central Time. So I know the West Coasters usually will hit us up on Twitter and tell us it's a little too early. We know it happens every year, but we start the real show at 9 a.m. Central Time in Chicago. It's at the Chicago Museum of Contemporary Art. We do have a few tickets left. So yeah, it's cool in person. I know the live stream is great that it's free, but it is fun in person. I'll be there in person, so if you want to buy a ticket, you can see it. And I think a couple really great features that we have this year, in addition, we partnered with John Green on something. So I'll give you that little hint. Indie connection, okay. Yeah. And we also will be doing a dinner event, and we're going to be asking our online audience to have their own dinner called On the Table, and we partner with the Chicago Community Trust. And they did a program called On the Table where they got about 6,000 people to hold dinner parties in Chicago to come up with the next big ideas for Chicago. So that will happen too. We'll have some toolkits and some resources for people to do it at home. And the best ideas will be coming back to MCON next year to talk about them. So we'll build that in too as well. And then, of course, as you mentioned, first thing on the 24th, go to the Millennial Impact and MCON. You can download the research. It will all be there available that morning. You'll be able to download infographics, different types of things too as well. So that'll be set. Do it. You got to do it all. Go to the live stream. If you're close to Chicago, I'm going to take a train, so I'll be there for sure. Yeah. Museum of Contemporary Art's great facility. So. Well, cool. Well, we'll link to all this stuff. We'll get this in front of people. Derrick, this was awesome. Thanks for all the work you do making all this happen, especially all the things that are free. This is really cool of you. Well, thanks so much, and always a pleasure for sure, Steve. All right. Well, we'll catch you next week with another great episode. Thanks for hanging out for a few minutes, and we will catch you again with our next episode of Bloomerang TV. So bye now.